Yeah, actually the two talks before are really, really well in line. There's a strong segue with what I will talk about. Very different, but I need to catch Andrew because I need to tell him a few things. But anyway, my name is Roland Benedetti. I'm a product guy at Pantheon. How many guys here use Pantheon? Not so much. And how many guys think Pantheon is something else than just a hosting provider? Nobody. Okay, right. Well, I actually work at Pantheon, but I did not at all with the hosting, and that's what I wanted to tell to Andrew. I don't really care because we do other things at Pantheon, and that's what we're going to talk about. I've been building web stuff since a long time. I'm a little old. This is just to say that I don't want to speak too much about myself. I worked in open source for an open source CMS in Europe that is bigger than here, called EasyPublish, that became Ibexa, and I led this product for 15 years, and then I switched. Anyway, I started with old stuff such as Confusion, such as Vignette, TCL, such as like the very first CMS, proprietary, open source came, worked with EasyPublish, with Drupal, with WordPress, Revolution, that was great. I worked with Headless CMS and so on. And actually, the problem we try to solve now are problems that I've been facing all along. I still face them, and that's what I want to talk about. I won't do this poll because here it's a developer audience, but at Confab, who knows Confab? Like content strategy, content architecture, content operations, there are so many names, but it's all like basically content practitioners. At the last Confab, Laura Robertson, she asked like, hey, raise your hand if you love your CMS. Nobody raised hands in an audience with so many people. And that says a lot, like the room went silent. And Dean Barker, from who is now, I forgot the company he's working with, but who is like basically a thought leader in the CMS industry, clearly that's the number one reason why people are switching CMSs. It's because their user hates them. Like, you might love Drupal, I love EasyPublish. I didn't love Drupal because I was just against it, but I kind of liked WordPress. Anyway, that's not the question. The end user are not liking it. And this is going on for 30 years. And this is going on again and again and again. And yes, 10 years ago, Headless came, agreed, and with a new vision, separation of concerns, but it also came with problems. And we also didn't solve that problem, that is, end users of the CMS don't like it. They just don't work in the CMS. They actually work somewhere else. So they work for, if you talk to end users who are not solely dedicated to entering content into a CMS, they actually work somewhere else. If you talk to people who are content operators, their job is to load the content from someone else in the CMS. Well, they might like the CMS. They spend their life there, of course. But if they have something else to do, if they are, let's say, a marketer and they have to think about so many different other things, if they are an academician and an academic and they have to just dedicate maybe 10% of their work to web publishing, that's not where they work. That's not where they like. So at Pantheon, we asked our customers, and 90% of them were actually working in either Google Docs or Word, which is huge. And the CMS is actually supposed, for 30 years, has been supposed to solve that, to bring people enter content in the CMS. Nobody does it. And in between, it's copy-paste. It's manual loading. There's some tools that like a gather content that kind of try to solve that problem as well in more of a pre-production fashion, but it's still really largely manual. And this is actually hurting. It costs a lot of time. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of quality because governance in a manual process where you copy-paste your content is not good. And most importantly, maybe it costs like user experience from both the end user and also the consumer because it leads to unhappy users who are basically creating bad content. So that's a little bit what we try to solve in my little department at Pantheon, which is working towards the future of our company. At Pantheon, we are building a WebOps platform. And WebOps for us, it's content, code, and design, and it's not just code. It's not just dev. And the first 10 years of our company has been focusing on the code workflow. And that's not us, but we are part of that. We have to say that the code workflow works. I mean, GitHub and the progress that has been made with tools like CI/CD and all the things that you can plug around that ecosystem of tools worked so that now you can actually have a workflow which is actually governed automated and controlled in a very nice way that most of the users really like, actually. If you look at design, it's not yet there because design always starts in Figma or somewhere else. At some point, it goes into code and there start to be some design systems that work fairly well, but well, it's so-so, it kind of works. If you think about content, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. As I said, and we were talking about content types, I separated here two things, editorial content and landing page. Very different things. Editorial content, long form, blog, news, publishing. People work in Word or in Google Docs. They load once, and then if they have to manage a life cycle, versioning, or revisions, or so on, it's the mess. It's just a mess, doesn't work. Everybody gets crazy. Even at Pantheon, we released something last week. It was a mess. Even if Drupal is well known at Pantheon and we mastered Drupal, no, it was a mess. Landing pages, different marketing content, pixel perfect. A lot of people start to work and write in Figma now. But then after they have to cut and paste the Figma little piece of content everywhere to put them in the CMS, not working. So we looked at that with a different approach, which is not the approach of we will build a system where everybody works, but more really an approach where we want to meet users where they are. And we decided to start with Google Docs, because Google Docs, first we are a Google Doc user, and we eat our own dog food, and we think it's the best tool for collaboration, not only because of the concurrent editing thing, but more because the way it manages permissions in a very simple, controlled way when you have Google Workspace is brilliant. It's very simple, editor, commenters, viewers, and that's all. And also, the adoption of Google Docs is massive. In 10 years, they are really like beating Microsoft. We will look at Microsoft as well, but for now, we focused on that. Our long-term vision is actually to meet the web team where it works, where it likes to work. So that means that on the code side, yeah, you want to work on Drupal, WordPress, because they are excellent website building tools. You want to work, of course, sometime in React. You want to work in GitHub. While on the content side, you might want to work in Word, Google Docs, Notion, and some other things, and we want to connect that. So we are putting a lot of effort at connecting that with a longer-term vision that we would like to build a workflow where we can finally, as I mentioned, the code workflow works. We would like to have a workflow where design, code, and content can follow a path that is controlled, where in one click of a button, you can actually merge a change request, and you got all your content, all your code, and all your design being basically rolled out. Because web publishing rollouts are still manual everywhere. They are manual. And when you have to roll back, it's even worse. Because you deal with content units, content items, or content artifacts, maybe, I don't know what's the term, but you don't deal with this idea of a branch. And so we're working toward that. But the focus for now, and the focus of my talk, is actually on... interesting. No, that's not me, but I don't know what's happening. So the focus of my talk is really on where we started, and that's Google Docs. That's a simplistic architecture vision to tell you a little bit what we're building. This is the traditional part of Pantheon, which is not so much my part. That's where we run websites for our customers, mostly Drupal, WordPress a little bit less, and we have a few next because we introduced something called FES, which is a decoupled Drupal and WordPress with the front end, which is running on Next. Interesting.
It's back.
Alex. We are basically building a layer, what we call a content integration layer, where we want to connect on the content, but also on the design side, the tools that people are using to let them basically push their content and their design into a service where you can actually orchestrate and assemble content rollouts and then push them to the delivery layout. So basically the way we see the process or the workflow or the operation is splitting it into three. Creation, that's why you want to meet your users in their tool. Production, that's something that actually, it's childish to think that there's no production and no post-production. You always need SEO optimization. You always need enriching things. You always need creating content relations, be it semantically or not, when you write an article, you will want to embed things after the article so that the consumer can go on. So there's a work of production or post-production, you could call it. In the old world of the print industry, we would call this pre-press, but that's kind of the same. And then there's the world of delivering, what Uniform is really focused on, delivering this on the edge to different channels. And of course, Drupal, WordPress, next, but potentially any channel. And so what we start to build is this layer, which is like API first, and which is a cloud service. And we've been looking at that. So I will jump on a quick demo, but before that, I want just to pause a little bit. I wonder if this all makes sense. Any questions so far? So I will show you where we are now with this this product. It's a product that is for now. Actually, it's a capability in the content platform that we are launching in beta. We launched 2 weeks ago, and I will jump on the computer. Can you hear me if I talk like this?
Yes.
Okay.
No, use the microphone.
It's gonna be difficult.
Always use the microphone. No, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. You can use the microphone at all times. Some people can't hear you.
Okay.
It won't get recorded otherwise. It's really important.
Second one's pretty good.
Oh, you can on? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was, so this is Google Docs, what I was talking about. That's where collaboration happens for many types of content. Not all of them. The intention is not to say all the website will be managed in Google Docs. The intention is to say some content types have to be managed in Google Docs, and they will have a particular workflow. So I just asked stupid Gemini to write a story about Notre Dame and content management, which is totally stupid, but he's still writing a story about Notre Dame and content management, and when I read, there are some weird things, but anyway. He can make some correlation. I have no idea what he's saying. Forget about it. That's not the interesting part of GenAI for me. The interesting part is somewhere else, not when you need to create, but more when you need to extract, in my opinion. So I'm in this document, and to develop the feature or the capability that I will show you, we had to develop a Google Docs add-on. We had two options. We could have developed a Chrome extension or a Google Docs add-on. We decided to go for a Google Docs add-on so that it works cross-browser. So it can work on Safari, on Chrome, on Arc, or anything. And once you install the Google Doc, I should not take the staging, I should take the production. Once you install the Google Doc add-on, which is on the Google Marketplace, you have a small button and you have a sidebar that you can open on the right of the document, and you will use this to do all things related to talking with the web publishing workflow. So I'm basically in this document, and you see that there's a bunch of things here. I will not demo everything, but the first thing I want to demo is something that I do think Headless CMS totally overlooked when they came 14 years ago, which is making sure the writers can have an idea of how content will look like in the channel on the delivery layer. I think this is very important, and this was overlooked, and then it's been patched, and then all the headless CMS are becoming monolith again because they are building preview capabilities, and then they are basically building a CMS again. So for us, that was probably the first thing to do, is how will this Google Doc show on the web, because the web is so different than Google Doc. So you have a preview which is here, which I will spin up, and I will just put them side by side in my browser, and I will reduce a little bit the zoom factor of this and this, and so we build a way to have a real-time preview of everything you do, and you see how it will look like on your website. This is not published at all. This is just a round trip to the website layer to get, and it's using WebSocket to get a preview of how the content will look like. And the first thing I want to say is that obviously we don't want to let people bring everything from Google Doc on the website. That's the last thing you want. What you're interested in is the content. And a big part of my teamwork has been to be learning and knowing how we can parse properly Google Docs HTML and transform this in something much better in Markdown. So now I'm working here. Typically, I'm working with myself, and I suggest another title, so I will accept this suggestion, and this suggestion will come true, and I will be able to type. And if I leave, well, I will accept this one, and if I leave the suggestion mode and go in editing, any typing that I can do here will work real time. And anything I do on my document, I will have a real-time preview. And what it's cool is that that's not us, but that's Google Doc by definition. If you're working with your marketing team and you have 4 persons on the same document at the same time, like everybody does these days, you will all use this preview URL, which is protected by a token, but that your team can use to see how it will look like on the web at the end of the day, so that you can you can validate with a proper preview. Of course, it's like Notre Dame and what is this? Notre Dame and CMS is kind of a weird idea, but still, I will put an image. So it works also for image, for GIF, or whatever you want. You can basically prepare your content like this. Real-time preview, first thing. Second thing is publishing. So I reopen this. I will get back to a regular size. If I want to publish this now that I'm ready, a lot of people always tell us, like, you're crazy, that doesn't make any sense because Google Docs are not structured. You just have, you have semi-structure, you have headings actually, so part of the thing we clean. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say that. I was mentioning that, but you have a lot of editors that are doing this because they think that, I don't know, comics is much better, and my title is more important than your title, I will put it red. This type of thing, of course, doesn't go through. So there's a process of accessibility and normalization of the content, which is very important, which you control. So when you are happy, even if you keep this, it will be stripped. You can go to the publish thing, and the publish thing will bring something else, which is Google Docs by itself is not enough to exist on the website. You need more structure, more meta, basically. And you also need to say where you want this content to live. So what we have here is the concept of content collections. You are connecting your content to a collection of other documents, and they can be organized. They can be organized in a tree with sections and subsections. They can be ordered. Or you can decide not to do that because Drupal might take care of that with categories and so on. But you basically have this ability to say where this content will be within a collection, which will tell where will it be within one website or within 10 websites, which might govern how content will be syndicated down the road. This could be culture or tech because it's CMS and Notre Dame, but I will go in culture. And then you have metadata. Meta is not something we had on top of the meta, the basic meta from Google Docs. We had a schema, which is a schema that developers can define themselves, which will fit and which will be understandable by Drupal, by WordPress, and by Next.js, so that you can use this for whatever you want. And the basic is, of course, SEO. The basic is SEO. We use meta to define all the classic meta. So, of course, title, description. Keywords, we still have this, but it's not anymore really used, but still. So we have this layer of meta that we control that will say a lot to where the content will be used and how, and we plug this to basically LLMs, and that's where LLMs are good. To digest big part of content, to create maybe a summarization, because except if you are really, like that's really a big focus of yours, very often so the description field is the last wheel of the chariot, and you just, it's too late, blah, 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 blah. I do something quickly. At least here you have 3 proposals that the LLM of your choice can give you, and you can pick the one you want. Same for tag extraction or things like that. And then you can publish, and it's published. So that's done. This is living on this website, which is actually Next.js. But the beauty of this is that it's decoupled. So I can show you the same with, actually I will start with Drupal, with WordPress, which is here. If I do the same on WordPress, you'll have this view of the same document that I created. I'm on Drupal actually. I'm on the Drupal one, Umami, and the same thing with WordPress. So I won't talk too much about WordPress here. I know it's dangerous, but
See, we took
Well,
over.
well, I don't even have the WordPress one. So actually, I need to go on my Chrome to show you this one. I just want to show. Voila. The way we integrated in Drupal, and that's interesting, and I would love to have discussion later on in the day, is that we decided to leverage the view system. I don't know how many people are familiar with the view system of Drupal. I'm not a Drupal developer, but yeah, okay. So in Drupal, this is basically exposed to Drupal as in the view system. You have a module to install, and then when you do this, you have views which are, if I go, I created Umami stories, which are basically, this is a very basic one, but you have two views here. The one that lists all the stories that we are pushing into a new section of the Drupal site, and then you have the detailed view of the content. The detailed view of the content is fairly simple. It's mostly getting the bulk of the document that I just showed you, and then you have the title and a few other things. Whereas the listing is showing you other fields. So that's where you have access to all the meta that I showed you. So you can leverage this. And the beauty, and am I out of time or not? Yeah, probably. I'm almost done, so I will just get back to the slide.
It's too good to stop.
The beauty of this is, and I will take over with that. So that was a quick demo, but the beauty of this is it's using an architecture which is like this, where we have, again, I was mentioning creation, production, delivery. We have this middle tier, which is a cloud service, where we ingest, and we will ingest from other things. We are doing actually currently Google Sheet, which is really cool because combining Google Doc and Google Sheets, actually you can power a lot of the content you need on a regular brochureware website. So we see it as a really cool, interesting things to list directories or things like that. We have this layer of a big document store, which is Markdown using Firestore. We index everything, and we have a search that I didn't show, but which is using Vertex Search, which is the Google technology for search, which is actually plugged itself to LLMs, be it the Google one or others. And then we deliver through GraphQL endpoint. So the module that we developed for Drupal is just using this API. And the WordPress thing is a little bit different because WordPress is not that smart as Drupal. Maybe I'm getting some good. So we decided to move content as entities in WordPress because otherwise most of the content will not work with the plugins of the WordPress ecosystem. But then, truly, you can do whatever you want. You can use the API, and the idea is that with this setup, you have also a modern architecture where your content can be delivered through different channels, which has also a ton of value, and which is approaching this more with a workflow opinion more than a system vision of things. We don't want everything to be in there. So for the Google Doc thing, for instance, it's really good for knowledge-based documentation, blog news stories, and long-form content, but surely not for everything, just to be clear. And once we have other content sources, you will have some other content tools that will be good for other things. Google Sheet and Excel would be really good for simplified navigation that you want to manage on a small website, for instance. So, yeah, I guess that's all. I'm a little bit over. I hope this was interesting, and I would take any questions right now or later.
So we have a bunch of sites on Pantheon.
Yeah.
Our content editors do not like CMS. So just wondering, when is this going to be ready? And is it actually going to cost extra, or will it be included in our system?
We just started a beta, private beta, on the Google Doc plugin, on what I showed. So the beta typically will range from 3 to 6 months. The goal of the beta for us is to, of course, mature a little bit the solution, but also better uncover the value and also gear the solution towards what you guys need the most. So if you're interested in beta, you can go, actually this, you will have the link. Here you will have actually a form where you can basically ask to be in the beta, and if it's a good fit, you can join the beta. Yeah.
Is there any configuration control? So say you have some. Is there a way to, for example, if you have pages created and you want to send the content into different paragraphs or different fields to sort of migrate so that people don't need to copy and paste from one content type to a better content type where they can add other things. is there a way to configure the platform to do that?
Is the question specific to Drupal or?
Yeah, from Drupal to Drupal actually.
Yeah.
I did see that you could have Drupal as input as well.
Yeah, but this one was shaded, which means we are developing it, so it's not part of the beta yet. Actually, we are working with some partners, but once we have this, what you say will be doable actually. Before that, for now, we just have a simple import script, which is importing, but that can be cool, which is basically importing Google documents and turning them into, importing Drupal content types, turning them into Google Docs. So depending on your content type, and then you are migrating to a Google Docs setup. But it's not always making a lot of sense, and actually rarely making a lot of sense depending how it's architecture. Yeah.
And another question is it possible to have, for example, if someone makes a more complex layout in Google Docs, say like 2 columns or 3 columns or whatever, how is that working with the platform?
It depends. It's not black and white. Like, for instance, Google Docs introduced something really great that I love, which is called the tabs for Google Docs, where I don't know if anybody saw that. It's super convenient, and this will be basically directly available in what I showed you, because it's kind of structured, but also neutral, like not taking a stance on what the tab should be used for, just tab names, you have a bulk of content. So it's basically, it can be reused for architecturing your content in some ways. Now, multi-column, we are working on it, but it's super complex, so for now we don't support because it's behaving erratically. And there's a lot of things in Google Docs which are behaving a little bit erratically, honestly. Maybe
Yeah, I noticed that you had components showing in one of your screen shares.
Yeah.
Is there support for components in some way?
Yeah, I did a very quick. If you want, I can show you more of in a break. But we have this concept of components, which is brought to the Google Doc as a smart chip. I don't know if you know the smart chip. Smart chip are things like this. Sorry, I just do this super fast. Smart chip look like. Well, I can basically insert a component here, and the chip in the Google Doc look like this, basically. Actually, this is inserting a component from the website, and it could be, like, this is a basic one, because my demo on Drupal has no component setup, but it could be a form, it could be you're on an e-commerce setup, and you're basically doing reviews of product. You want a product card with the price and everything coming from the PIM. This content should not live in Google Doc, it should be pulled, but this way the editor can see where it would be in the flow of the story, and it's plugged onto, when it comes to Drupal, it's basically matching SDC. So in the module, there's a module that is dedicated to make the one-one connection between a component in Google Docs and a component in a single directory component Drupal. And in React, it's basically a React component. Yeah, and I think we need, that will be the last one. After, I'm here all day, so we, go ahead, sorry.
Hey, quick question. So how does this work with content structure? So, like, we have to lay out Burger, we need to structure it in different blocks, layouts, etc. How does that work? Second question, when is the Microsoft Word part coming out? Love that part. And what about the storage of images? Like, is this storing on the Google Doc itself, or does this actually move to Power? Sorry, bunch of questions.
That's 3 questions. Images are actually managed right here for now. So not on Google Docs. They are basically, it's GCP, so it's still Google, but it's really basically Google CDN. But down the road, they should be managed by our Edge Advanced CDN or whatever you want to use. The second question was Word. We will do Word when we are done with Google Docs, so not before 1 year, I think, because we are very early still in that product. But once we validate Google Docs, probably we'll do Word, except if it's extinguished. But I doubt. It's still 50-50 in terms of market share. And the first question, content structure, I think I gave some elements, but I have those collections which can be structured and all those meta. In a Drupal use case, typically you use a lot of meta to build your structure. That's what you would use. So far, we just do the view. We don't bring content as entities. Maybe we will do it later. Yeah. And Can I have just the last one? Because you were asking at the very beginning and I cut you 3 times.
Very quick, yeah.
Yeah.
Just how do you handle the multi-language in the publishing?
We are not opinionated at all so far. So there's no, and actually it's on purpose. So you can of course use Google Docs to do translation. Actually tabs are a very good element of that. You could imagine having tabs for all the languages you want to support in your website and asking Google to do the translation. That's not our job. We would basically provide this, and you would have to have your own semantic logic that says, oh, this tab is EN, and so it's English, and this tab is FR, it's French. But we don't have any opinion yet on that. Maybe in the future we will have features that relates to that, but we are staying away from that for the moment.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Which doesn't say it's not possible, it just says we are not sure. Yeah.
Oh, I was just thinking,
Yeah, I
if
think-
the editor had English and French, they all hear and then they publish basically to the whatever they could be the same knot, right? How do you?
In Drupal?
Yeah.
But for now, because we use the view system, we don't have nodes per se.
Oh,
And in the future, maybe we will have, but too early to say. And I really need to stop because Alex is. Thank you very much for the questions.